Hello YouTube. This video is a video that I've put off making. As you've read by the title, my dad has passed away. So I'm making this video back in the very same place that he made the first video on this channel, next to his 1931 Huber. So, Dad really didn't know what YouTube was about, but he liked doing the videos, and he enjoyed the comments that I would read back to him that you all left. Shortly, well, not very long before he passed away, he asked, the last video that was about him was, he wanted to know how it was doing, and I said, well, Dad, it's got over 6,000 views. And that's the one where he's 97 years old, just shy of his 98th birthday. And he's out working up his field for what would become the very last time. So since so many of you have followed along with our channel and have made comments about how much you loved hearing Dad's old stories, I thought it was important that every story has an ending, and I needed to do this video to bring that chapter to a close. One of the videos that I made, I did an update about Dad, and that was after I had taken him to the hospital, and it was determined that he had a stroke, and they released him, and he came back home, and the condition was that he had in-home care. He had therapists coming in, and this was probably in September. And he was doing well, but they felt that he needed a little bit more time. So they extended his in-home care into November. I was at work when I got a call from one of the nurses, the therapist that came to his house to give him his day's therapy, and she called to tell me that she had found him collapsed on his dining room floor, and that was like at 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning. So she had called the ambulance, and they came out and got him, and he was on his way to the hospital. So like I said, I was at work, I stopped everything, jumped in my truck, and went on down to the hospital to be with him. And true to his, the way that he always was, it didn't take long and he was ready to go. He said, pay the bill, Steve, let's get out of here. But they kept him in for observation, and they did different scans on him. And that took most of the day, and he was getting restless. He wanted to go home. When they finally did release him, he hadn't ate all day. And I was sure he was hungry, so I said, Dad, should we stop in and get you something to eat? He said, yeah, he'd like to go to Arby's, and so we pulled in, got him an Arby's roast beef sandwich, Coke, and fries. I brought him home, got him in the house, and got him seated down to eat the food that we had just picked up. And I had a long conversation with Dad, and I said, Dad, I don't feel comfortable leaving you home alone anymore. We need to get somebody to come in on a more regular basis than just when I'm coming in, or my wife, or our cousin Karen, or whoever it might be. We need to get you some help that's in the house more than we have. And he was agreeable to that. And I said, I feel kind of funny about even leaving you here tonight. And I said, I kind of don't want to leave you, Dad. And he says, you go on home, I'm fine. So I got in the truck, went home, and went to bed. And this thing just keeps eating at you in the back of your head. I wonder if Dad's okay. I wonder if Dad's okay. So 6 o'clock in the morning, I got in my truck and came over here. Now Dad lives maybe a half a mile, so it's, it doesn't take long for me to get over here. When I walked in the house, I knew something was wrong. There was clothes. He had taken off his clothes. I don't know if he was going to take a shower or what he was going to do. He went in the bathroom, and that's where I found him collapsed again. This is the following morning. So I called the ambulance and got them to come out and get Dad, and he was not in a good way, but he was coherent and he was talkative. So we got him to the hospital, and I'm a little bit fuzzy sometimes, so bear with me if I gotta do a little recollection here. We got him to the hospital, and it was determined that he had what the heck is that called? A humoral, something where there's blood on the brain. And right now the correct name escapes me. And he also had a back fracture. And we don't know if that was from the first fall. Subdural hematoma. There, it finally came to me. Wasn't known if that was from the first fall or the second. But anyways, they kept him in the hospital for some observation, and then released him to the rehab center. But I got to tell you a funny story while he was in the hospital. There was bright lights, and it was a white room, and when he came to, he asked my brother and my wife and I were in the hospital with him, and he said, am I in a casket? No, Dad. No, you're right here. Oh, I'm glad to know that. So he had his humor. He still had his humor. So anyways, they did release him to the rehab center here in town, and I went ahead and got him clothes that he was going to need, because he was going to be there for a while. And the last day he was there, I went and found a place for him to be released to after they released him, because he couldn't come back home. I stopped in to talk to him, and that was probably about 3 o'clock. I came home and I got a phone call 3:30, 4 o'clock, that he had been taken by ambulance from the medical care facility back to the hospital because he had thrown up large amounts of blood. So I got to the hospital, and he was, I'm not going to get into it too graphic, but he was in a bad way. And he told me, he says, "Oh, Steve, I really did it this time. I really messed up this time." The doctor told me that it didn't look good and that Dad didn't have long. And he said he could go tonight, he could go tomorrow. So of course I called both of my brothers and I called my wife. And my brothers came, my wife was there yet that night. My brother, the middle brother, Mark, he lives about 2.5 hours away, so he headed down. And then my brother, Denny, lives further than that. He headed down the following morning. So we were there at the hospital, and you know, Dad was the kind of guy that he'd get bad, but he'd come back. He was like a cat with 9 lives. He'd bounce right back. So he wasn't bouncing back, and they said that they were going to have to admit him to hospice. So we found a hospice for him to go to. Now, remember that the doctor said he may pass away tonight, it may be tomorrow. Well, it was a week later when we finally put him in hospice. And I'm going to say the hospice center was fantastic. My brothers and I, and my wife, we would go up and see him every day. And you could tell it was getting closer to the end. And they had a manual or a booklet that they put out that describes a person in their final days, what to look for, and they were spot on. You could see he was declining. So he was no longer able to talk to us. They had kept him on medication to keep him comfortable. The last 2 days, both of my sons were with us by his side. And when Dad finally passed away on November 27th, there was myself, my two brothers, and my two sons at his side when he drew his last breath. So that's when he died. And then they had the funeral on December 5th. At the funeral, it was a very nice funeral, and we had a cousin that gave the eulogy. And to describe the way Dad lived, she did a wonderful job. And I guess I could say that Dad said this himself, that he had lived a wonderful, long life, and he did what he wanted to, the way that he wanted to, right up until the end. So he actually, after the doctor said that he would maybe die tonight or tomorrow, he lived another couple weeks. He was just that kind of guy, he just didn't give up. So I want to just say in closing, thank you everybody that has watched Dad's videos. I have a playlist, I think it's called Memories of a Farmer. And I might say that with that playlist, when they did have Dad's funeral, they played a continuous loop of those videos. So people that hadn't seen Dad for a while were able to see these videos. And our family has enjoyed being able to watch, even after Dad's gone, we still can click on a video and see Dad and hear Dad and his laughs, the way that he laughed. So maybe to some people, this video might seem a little bit morbid. Why would you talk about your dad after he passed away? But that's just the way that it was. He enjoyed the videos, and after he's gone, now we are enjoying the videos. So I want to say thank you to everybody that has subscribed to our channel and watched Dad's videos, reached out and talked to me in different ways, different social platforms. It meant a lot. And I guess in closing, I'm just going to say, if your parents are still with you, give them a call, talk to them, give them a hug, because those days are coming to an end someday at some point in time. With that, I want to say thank you again, and until the next time, take care and God bless.